In less than 48 hours from now, the first 5 of the 36 Rafale fighter jets will touch down at the Ambala airbase. The Rafales took off from France's Bergerac airport this morning and after a mid-air refueling have landed at Abu Dhafra in Abu Dhabi. The 7,000-kilometer journey will end on Wednesday as they touch down in India, armed with Scalp and Meteor missile systems. Could the Rafales really be a game changer for India? Here's our lead story tonight.
The sweet growl of jet engines. The roar ripping up the crisp morning air as 5 new Rafale jets blast off from the Mérignac airfield in southern France. The jets are finally homeward bound. The combat fighters are being flown home to India by the country's first Rafale pilots. They spent their morning prepping for the ferry flight, and then they were given a send-off by India's ambassador to Paris.
They are superb flying machines being flown by the best pilots in the world. We'd like to thank Dassault for delivering the aircraft on time, the French Air Force and the French government for all the support they've provided. This is going to add a great deal of strength to our air power and defense preparedness, but it is also a powerful symbol of the strategic partnership between India and France.
The 5 Rafales won't be alone in the air. In the first leg of their flight from Mérignac to Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE, over 5,000 kilometers away, the Indian Rafales will be joined in the air by 2 French Air Force Airbus A330 mid-air refueling aircraft. And this is precisely what that refueling will look like, with the Rafales using a refueling probe to plug into a drogue hose dangling from the tanker jet. This will give the Rafales the fuel necessary for the long non-stop flight across the Mediterranean and across West Asia. In the second leg of their flight, from Al Dhafra in UAE to Ambala in Haryana, their new home, the Indian Rafales will soar out over the Persian Gulf. Over the Arabian Sea, they will be met by 2 Indian Air Force IL-78 mid-air refuelers. For the final journey home, since the jets cannot fly over Pakistan, they'll fly a circuitous route over Gujarat and curve north towards Ambala. The total distance of this final leg will be over 2,700 kilometers. Once they land, the Indian Air Force won't spare a moment and will work to quickly get the aircraft into combat-ready mode. The Rafale's formidable weapons, the Scalp cruise missile and Meteor beyond visual range air-to-air missile are already in Ambala, waiting for their motherships to arrive. Oh, and by the way, if you've been wondering, the RB on the Indian Rafale tails stands for the initials of India's current Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal Rakesh Bhadoria. He'll be welcoming the jets to the country not long after they arrive. But come Wednesday, India's tryst with the Rafale finally begins. Bureau Report, India Today.
You know, India tried for almost 2 decades to order a multi-role combat aircraft. The deal never got finalized and announced. Finally, Prime Minister Modi pushed ahead with 36 Rafale fighter aircraft, 5 of which are arriving. But now, in the midst of all of this, we've got the Congress seeking credit because P. Chidambaram in a press conference said that it was the Congress that approved the Rafale fighter jet, which is a bit like saying that they also approved one rank, one pension, because they did announce it but never made the payment or never made the financial allocation to actually go out and buy the fighter jet. So we're joined on this broadcast at a time when this very unseemly political war for credit is playing out. Representing the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, Amit Malviya squaring off against him. We've got Supriya Shrinathe of the Congress for a perspective of what this means for India's fighting capabilities. I'm joined on this broadcast by Air Marshal Anil Chopra. He is a former fighter pilot who commanded the Mirage 2000 squadron and has been in a situation similar to the one that we're seeing. Fighter jets flying in from France. That time, of course, it was the Mirage. And we've got Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, who feels that this entire story is being hyped up way beyond is necessary. But before I kickstart our debate, I want to show you this report on the political war of words that's broken out between the BJP and the Congress about who deserves credit for finally ordering the Rafale and ensuring that they land in India.
Less than 48 hours before the first batch of game-changer Rafale fighters land in Ambala, Haryana, a full-blown credit war has taken off. Former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram credited the UPA government with choosing the Rafales for the Indian Air Force.
Why should you protest against a Rafale aircraft? Remember, day one said there is a good aircraft. In fact, it was chosen by the government. There's nothing wrong with the aircraft. There were other issues in the way the contract was handled.
Now let's just rewind to 2 years ago, when in the run-up to the 2019 elections, then Congress President Rahul Gandhi's one-point agenda and poll plan was alleging corruption in the 36-jet deal with France.
That the Prime Minister said it was a very good deal. And I agree with him. It was a very good deal. But it was a very good deal for the Prime Minister and his businessman friend. He paid 1,500 crores for a plane that the UPA had worked out at 700 crores.
From questioning the pricing of the deal,
अब इन्होंने स्वयं कहा 58,000 करोड़ की डील है. राहुल गांधी ने नहीं कहा, कांग्रेस पार्टी ने नहीं कहा, अरुण जेटली जी ने अपने पार्लियामेंट के भाषण में कहा. 58,000 को आप 36 से डिवाइड करिए, क्या नंबर आता है? 1600. तो अरुण जेटली जी, हमें 1600 नंबर आपने दिया है अपने भाषण में.
to daring the Prime Minister himself to a debate on the fighter aircraft.
I would very much like to debate the Prime Minister one-on-one on Rafale, on anything about combat aircrafts. Just give me 20 minutes with the Prime Minister, debate one-on-one on Rafale, and then you decide what is what.
Rahul Gandhi's Chaukidar Chor Hai slogan was aimed at alleging corruption by the Modi government in the Rafale deal. Not only did the slogan backfire, Narendra Modi returned to power with an even bigger majority. The Prime Minister always stood firm on the Rafale deal.
राफेल की कमी आज देश ने महसूस की है. आज हिंदुस्तान एक स्वर में कह रहा है कि अगर हमारे पास आज राफेल होता तो शायद इससे भी नतीजा कुछ और होता.
With Congress's corruption in Rafale deal campaign crash landing, the party and Rahul Gandhi have been left licking their wounds. The question now is, will Rahul Gandhi welcome India's new jets, or are echoes of Chaukidar Chor Hai still ringing in his ears? Bureau Report, India Today.
It was in the year 2001 that the first request for information for the multi-role combat aircraft was put out. It's taken 2 decades for the Indian Air Force to get 5 fighter jets, which will land on Wednesday, and we've got this big battle for credit playing itself out. Let's kickstart our show. I want to ask first, Amit Malviya, given the fact that there are just 5 fighter jets landing in the first batch of Rafale that are coming, and better late than never, but should there really be as much chest thumping around the fact that you've got these 5 fighter jets finally coming in, or do you really believe that this is the first step towards India acquiring a game changer which changes the potential nature of combat with China and possibly even with Pakistan?
First of all, in your opening comments, you made it very clear that demand for an aircraft of this kind had been pending for over decades. Now, that should tell you why the induction of these first 5 planes is so significant. And by all accounts, Rafale is an extremely powerful jet, which meets all the requirements of the Air Force and also takes care of our future requirements. And therefore, it is quite significant. Had it not been significant, we would not have had to go through the entire process over and over again and see that India got the best deal. As far as the politics of it is concerned, it's quite unfortunate that Mr. Chidambaram would come out and try and take credit for something that his former party president was trying really hard to discredit. Perhaps either Rahul Gandhi does not take Mr. Chidambaram seriously, or he has no weight left in the party, because if that was the case, there would not be this kind of divergence.
No, so let's take that up with Supriya Srinath. Far from taking credit for having evaluated and approved the Rafale aircraft, the Congress actually deserves a lot of blame for the delay in placing this order. From 2001 is when the process started. It was supposed to be put out in 2005. That wasn't done till 2007, 2008. You went through the entire Defence Acquisition Council. Till the end of the UPA tenure, we still hadn't placed the order for the actual purchase of the Rafale. So what is the Congress party seeking credit for, Supriya Srinath?
I don't think this is a matter of seeking credit. I think we are as happy as anybody would be that there are these 5 Rafale aircrafts that will be added to the ammunition of the Indian Air Force, and any enemy on our borders, and we know who we are referring to, should be alarmed. I think that is what we speak as Indians. But will you deny the fact that the entire process, I mean, even as you say, the delay as you say it, the entire process was initiated, the zero down and all of that of Dassault happened under the UPA government.
You did nothing. You didn't place the order. That's the point. One second. Supriya, 1 second. Everyone needs to realize this fair and square. Far from taking credit, the Congress needs to be hauled over the coals for the manner in which you delayed this weapon purchase. If we are in the mess that we are, is because Mr. Defence Minister at that time, A.K. Antony, refused to bite the bullet and refused to place a real order. You went from committee to committee, Tariq pe Tariq, and you refused to order the Rafale, which is why these Rafale are coming in almost 2 decades after we first needed them.
Rahul, just to jog your memory, the Defence Ministry announced that Dassault Rafale had won the MMRCA competitive bid on the 31st of December 2012. So, I mean, just to jog your memory there, I think the BJP...
What happened after that? You developed cold feet. What happened after that? You developed cold feet because... Ma'am, unless you actually purchase the weapon, just the announcement by itself means nothing.
So if I may be allowed to finish my unspoken statement, I will be very appreciative of it. I am simply saying that this is not a political credit war in any case. This is an ammunition that's coming to the Indian Air Force, and the army belongs to all of us. The armed forces belong to all of us. We are happy about that. What we perhaps are only saying is that this entire process was started by the UPA. Let us not be misled by the BJP. And I think Amit Malviya made a very misleading statement saying Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi never said Rafale was a bad aircraft. He never raised questions on why do we need a Rafale. He raised questions on the procurement process. But today, in the situation where we are, where we have an enemy inside our territory, I think we need these aircraft. I wish we had had more of them. I wish only 36 were not going to come by the end of next year. I wish there were 126 coming. So I think, you know, the debate needs to be done elsewhere. I think there is Corona. There are far many more issues that need to be debated than political credit. Now, whether you want to give it or not, whether Amit Malviya wants to give it or not, the reality is it was initiated by the UPA, and you can't take that away from us. But we are very happy that the Rafale is coming. I just wish they were coming in larger numbers.
Can I bring in the Air Marshal, please? Air Marshal Chopra, the Congress is seeking credit for having initiated the process. Now, I don't know whether one should laugh or cry, because from 2008, when you asked for RFPs, there were no formal proposals coming in. Just the fact that in 2012 the Rafale was shortlisted means nothing, because we never went out and actually purchased and there was no final agreement. Is this a fair ask? They're saying don't forget our role, because we are the ones who started this process, and therefore while Mr. Malviya and his party glows in the fact that 5 new fighter aircraft are coming, the Congress is seeking its pound of credit. Air Marshal Chopra.
Yeah, I must say it is the most unfortunate that when we have the Chinese hammering, sitting on our borders, and we are still doing this political slugfest. I remember 18 months back, I have come repeatedly on your channel and your show when we were again trying to resolve as professionals this political slugfest. Now let me tell you that undoubtedly in 2001 is when Indian Air Force started the requirement of 126 aircraft. It is a shame on the country for everybody of us. Whether it's Air Force, the government, the bureaucracy, the politics, that in 2000 we are getting those aeroplanes, just 36 out of the 120. So I don't want to get into the politics. As a professional Air Force man, I must say that it is most unfortunate. Now, whether it was Congress who was wrong or BJP, it doesn't bother me. My second point I want to make is Rafale. You know, I was a member, a high-level committee had been set up by Mr. Anthony, the then Defense Minister, where S.A. RM was the chairperson. I was one of the members. This was the oversight committee to say that everything in this contract, has it gone off absolutely correct? Are the technical selection process? Because Rafale had been chosen a single one. And I'm telling you, this committee report was given to the Defense Minister, which was accepted by the Ministry of Defense, to say that everything in this whole contractual procedures of selection was absolutely correct.
Now, Mr. Malviya, I want you to respond to the charge that there's high... Okay, go on, Amash.
You know, my last point. You see, the fact is the aircraft is required. Fact is, it is going to be a game changer in the region, and I can prove it if you give me a chance subsequently. And I will tell you, but if the number 36 is certain, no. There is, as a professional, I must tell you, either we place an order of another 36 aircraft or we fast-track the procedure for 114 aircraft. I don't care. But we need more fighter aircraft.
Okay, so I'll build on this. I'll build on this in just a moment. But I want to put the question to Mr. Malviya about, you know, this being high on optics, very high on symbolism, but at the end of the day, if you look at the net outcome, we've got 5 additional fighter aircraft which can't be operationalized on day one. We are speeding up as much as possible the process of operationalization, but it will still take some time. And therefore, is there too much hype being given? Is this been turned into some kind of event management around which the BJP is trying to score political brownie points? Whereas the reality is, for this to be a potent game changer in an operational situation, that process is still very far away and the numbers are still way too few. Amit Malviya.
You know, well, Rahul, I would have ideally liked 126 aircraft on day one right in our air bases. But you know that's not possible. Because if you've lost 2 decades, it is going to take time before we can get these aircraft in. What is important is that Mr. Modi's government has set the process in motion in earnest. It has ensured that this is a government-to-government deal. It has ensured that we've negotiated better prices for skeleton bare aircraft as well as fully loaded aircraft. He has made sure that there is enough offset so that businesses in India can benefit from it. There's technology transfer and all of that. I completely understand what the professionals from the Air Force have been demanding. It is an imperative. We need to very quickly revamp our capacity, but it is all going to take time. What is really important, and everybody should recognize this, that Mr. Modi's government has done the right things at the right time, despite so much of political opposition.
Okay.
If you remember, if I can finish what I'm saying, Rahul, if you remember, the Congress did everything possible to stall this aircraft by making all kinds of unsubstantiated charges. And that is the point that this country needs to recognize.
Okay, so the word game changer is being used so often. Is the Rafale indeed a game changer? So what we did is, we compared spec on spec, weapon on weapon, ability against ability of the top Indian fighter air jet with the Chinese counterpart. Now, in China at this time, you've got the J-20 and you've got the Shenyang J-31, which are China's top-line fighter jets, but especially the Chengdu J-20. So what we did is we compared the two. We spoke to air veterans to try and understand whether the Rafales are indeed better. Are they indeed a game changer? Are they superior to what they're up against on the other side of the Himalayas? Defense correspondent Abhishek Bhalla with this story.
A fiery ascent, born and bred for battle. India's newest combat-ready fighters en route to joining the Indian Air Force. The first 5 Rafales have taken to the skies from France, headed to India. These game-changing jets are due to land at Ambala's Air Force Base on Wednesday. Game-changing because of their superior air power over Chinese fighters.
The big competition to Rafale might come from the Chengdu J-20, which the Chinese claim is a 5th-generation aircraft. But based on a lot of analysis, experts believe it's far from being one. And most importantly, while the Rafale is battle-hardened, having carried out operations in Afghanistan, Syria and Libya, the Chengdu J-20 has never seen any action.
This is China's J-20, the Rafale contender. The Chinese tout these 5th-generation stealth jets as their premier fighter plane and claim it's much more advanced than the Rafale, which is half a generation behind.
The Rafale is far superior to the J-20, which is the Chengdu fighter of China. Even though the Chengdu fighter is claimed to be a 5th-generation aircraft, I do believe the aircraft is probably at best a 3.5 generation aircraft. It's got a 3rd generation engine, the same engine as what we have on the Sukhoi, the AL-30.
We show you how the Rafales fare with China's premier jet, the Chengdu J-20. Remember, China's J-20s use the same engines as Russian Su-30s, which India operates. The Rafale engine is better in terms of reliability, longevity and maintainability. The Rafale's weapons load and fuel load of up to 1.5 times their weight, much more than the J-20s. The Rafale is an omni-role aircraft capable of carrying out at least 4 missions in a single sortie. The J-20s just cannot do that in one go. The Rafale is combat-proven and battle-hardened, used successfully in Afghanistan, Libya, Syria and Iraq. But the J-20 hasn't seen any action so far. And the Meteor missile on the Rafale makes it far more lethal than the J-20.
I do believe that the stealth characteristics of the J-20 are also suspect. It's got canards in front, which definitely is indicative of the fact that its stealth cannot be too good. Its weapon systems, capabilities, its performance, I don't think would be a patch on what the Rafale brings to the field.
The long-range Scalp mounted on the Rafales can take out air-to-ground targets over 500 kilometers away. Meteor missiles can hit targets that are well out of visual range. And the Mika missiles can be used both for visual and beyond visual range engagements in the air.
The Rafale brings with it a package of weapon systems that is tried and tested, making it a potent machine. And what's most significant is the fact that not just the Rafale fighter jet, but also the Indian Air Force pilots and the ground crew is fully ready to make sure that the Rafale can be pressed into action in a very short notice if required. With camera person Sanjeev Kumar, Abhishek Bhalla in New Delhi for India Today.
Air Marshal Anil Chopra, you flew and commanded the Mirage 2000 squadron, and now we're seeing another French aircraft come in. You said earlier that let me explain why this is a game changer. So explain to our viewers now, is this just hype? Do you genuinely believe in a potential conflict with either China or Pakistan? The Rafale add a lot of venomous teeth to the Indian attack capabilities? Explain that.
Absolutely. Firstly, I totally agree with your team and Air Marshal Nambiar that J-20 is totally overhyped. Rafale has got an experience of 20 years. It has seen 5 wars. The J-20 is forming the first squadron. The aircraft is not fully ready. Most of the modes have not even been tested. So forget J-20. So J-20 is not even being fielded anywhere near our borders. What is being fielded in our borders is J-10, which is equivalent to old F-16. And you can say the other aircraft are Su-30 class of aeroplanes. So therefore, I think let's not talk about J20, highly overhyped, and it's still in the process of induction. Now, second is, as a test pilot, I must tell you that if you start looking from at the Rafale from its nose to the tail, everything is a game changer. Look at the nose. ISA radar. There is no ISA radar of its class in China or Pakistan inventory. Then go further down. IRST, that is infrared search and track. No other aircraft in this whole area has got of the class. Get into the cockpit. Electronic warfare suit. The best. Spectra. The best electronic warfare suit that you will get. Go further back. Get into the weapons. All three weapons, you all have spoken. I don't need to go into details. I'm also now including the hammer, which we hope we will get soon because we'll require it in case the balloon goes up. Go backwards and engine. Shivaru just mentioned and Air Marshal Nambiar mentioned, look at the engine. There is no engine of its class in this whole subcontinent. We are all operating the engines which the Chinese are operating. We have been operating for. See the serviceability, see the maintenance, see the rate of change of the MTBF. How often we have to change the spare. So entire end-to-end weapons, aircraft as a system, and operational experience of 5 different wars. I think it's a clear game changer.
Okay.
And
Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, you're of the opinion that there's a lot of hype, that we're getting carried away and that we need to maintain our sense of balance and focus. Explain why you think that this entire hullabaloo around the flight of these 5 Rafale fighter aircraft to India, in your view, is hype that we need to be wary of.
Yeah, I tweeted today to say that Rafale is one cog in the big picture. Wars do not happen between aircraft and aircraft. Wars happen between systems, especially modern day war. So, while individual aircraft have their own characteristics, their own potency, their own drawbacks, finally it is a system that comes into it. That is what we must be careful of. So when I say let's not hyperventilate, it's a system which is coming into the Air Force, a very, very potent system. There is no doubt about it. It has to be integrated into the war fighting apparatus, if I can use the word, of the Indian Air Force. Certainly, the IAF would pull out all stops to bring it online very quickly, especially with what's going on in our northern borders. So that is what I mean, that there should be a sense of balance. Just 5 Rafales coming in is not a panacea for what is happening on our northern borders. It is not a messiah.
You make an important point, and I want to put this question to Amit Malviya, because since
May
the
I have
time
some more time?
Oh, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Air Vice Marshal.
Yeah, see, the point is, the point that the way we are talking about the system coming in first class is happy. I am happy, the Air Force is happy. But there should be a sense of balance for the lay public. They should not think that the Rafale has come and the Chinese will run away. No, certainly not. It's not going to be that way. We have to have our antenna up, because the other side is also smart and will be catering for all that the Rafale brings.
Okay, you make an important point. And I want to put that question to Amit Malviya, because even if we take 36 and not 5, which is the final order that India placed with Dassault, is just way too few, Mr. Malviya. Now, we need to see some greater sense of urgency, because Rahul Gandhi started throwing all those political barbs at the BJP and the Prime Minister personally right ahead of the 2019 elections. Has the BJP come under pressure? Because there hasn't been speedy movement to go from 36 to 124. Even the 124 that we were planning to order earlier wasn't the final order. It was 124 to start with, and then 60 to 70 more going forward. Far from that 60 to 70 going forward, we haven't even reached that 124, which was our base back in the year 2001. How do you intend to get into high throttle here, Mr. Malviya?
Well, first of all, Rahul, I don't think I share the pessimism of Air Vice Marshal Bahadur, because while he's right in pointing out that acquiring a fleet of jets does not necessarily mean that the other side is going to get intimidated. The idea is not to intimidate anybody. The idea is to ensure that we are well prepared when the time comes. And do we have what it takes to take on those who are trying to hurt India? And if we have seen what's happened in Eastern Ladakh this time, it tells us that Indian Army is second to none, and we can do what it takes to protect India's integrity and territorial boundaries.
Can you answer my question?
Having said that, I'm going to come
Rahul, I need to come in.
Just one at a time.
I need to come in.
Air Vice Marshal, let Amit Malviya complete. I promise to come back to you next.
No, I need to come in.
One second, sir. Faders down. Let Mr. Malviya complete. I'll go back to the Air Vice Marshal. Go ahead, Amit.
And to answer your question, yes, we need many more aircraft, and we have started in right earnest. But let's understand this, that if we are going to be dependent on Dassault to provide us these aircraft, it takes a certain amount of time from order to assemble these, to put them, out for the country that is buying it. And there is a certain process, and we are going through the process. What is important is that the orders have been placed. It's a government-to-government deal.
No, that's in the past. I'm talking about future orders. I'm talking about more weapon systems coming in, because that's where Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, I think the whole idea of trying to make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, the focus on the light combat aircraft, the delays in the delivery of the light combat aircraft really take away from the kind of strength our Air Force and Army need at this moment, because we're looking at that panacea called Make in India, and it's not up to speed just yet. It's delaying weapon purchases. Do you want to come in and respond to what Mr. Malviya is saying, Air Vice Marshal?
Yeah, first of all, I don't want to become a pawn in this political discussion. If I knew there were politicians coming, I would not have come. Your correspondent never told me that they were going to come. Number one. Number two, I am not pessimistic, and I can say that absolutely. I'm just being realistic. A professional has to be realistic. A politician can be, exuberant or whatever. So that is one. That's to answer what the previous speaker just said. Secondly, as far as Atmanirbhar and the Tejas and other things are concerned, certainly, absolutely certainly, we must stand on our feet. There are no two ways about it. I mean, you get 36 now, you get another 36 more, and then what? And as Air Marshal Chopra said, we have to build up the numbers. Those 114 contract, whichever way comes, the Air Force has absolutely placed its faith on HA. The Air Chief is on record to say that we will go for Tejas Mark II. Now it is for the DRDO, the ADA, the Aeronautical Development Agency, to come up in time with quality. So there are no two ways about it.
In fact, India today is amongst the only news channels globally, and most certainly the only one in India, to actually get into the cockpit of a Rafale fighter jet. In fact, even before the first Indian Air Force fighter pilot had got into the cockpit of a Rafale, India today's Shivarur back in 2012 was in the cockpit, and he went on this joyride, and he sends us these dispatches from a Rafale cockpit on what it is like to be in one of the most potent fighting machines in the world.
Roaring. Ready. All set for the Indian Air Force. This week, the Rafale stretches its wings for the first time under the auspices of its new masters, pilots of the Indian Air Force. And as a whole generation of Indian aviators get set to operate one of the most advanced combat jets in production today, India today takes you where nobody else has managed to, directly into the cockpit of the Rafale and into the air. That's right, we weren't kidding, we mean literally. long before the current crop of Indian pilots who will get to fly the Rafale. India Today's Shiv Arur became the first Indian civilian to do a sortie in the French jet. In 2011, not long before the Rafale was officially selected as India's next fighter following a grueling selection process, Shiv was invited to strap in and experience the 4th generation French fighter for himself. For the flight, Shiv needed to get the full lowdown of the advanced jet. Flying him on this warm summer morning at the Yelahanka Air Base in Bengaluru was Sebastian Dupont de Taichin, an experienced assault test pilot with hundreds of hours on the Rafale jet. For the flight, Shiv gets to don a French Navy flight suit and boots, all crucial elements to the flying experience, and of course, the all-important G-suit, indispensable for combat flying that involves sharp maneuvers. The Rafale is a beast of a jet, powered by twin jet engines that make it one of the most agile jets in the air. Shiv gets a full cockpit briefing on the jet, including how to operate the major systems and controls, and of course, the emergency ejection system in case of any kind of disaster in the air. Engines on, and the growl of the Rafale's engines pretty much drowns everything else out. Inside the cockpit, however, with the helmet on, Shiv only hears a bare rumble and remains in direct communication throughout with his pilot, Sebastian. With full afterburners on, the Rafale roars off the tarmac and rockets into the sky at a steep angle, followed by a sharp turn, demonstrating the aircraft's incredible agility. The Rafale exits Bengaluru airspace to a less densely populated part of the state for a 50-minute flight, where Shiv is given control of the jet for 15 minutes, allowing him to execute all manners and maneuvers, including loops, barrel rolls, and steep dives, followed by high G-level out stunts. After a full demonstration of the Rafale sensors and combat systems, it is time to return to base. With Shiv Arur, Bureau Report, India Today.
You know, that's one story I would have liked to be on, being on a Rafale fighter jet. Hopefully there'll be more opportunities going forward, but essentially it's an absolute delight for any military aviation geek that the Rafale are finally coming in. But I just want to say this to Amit Malviya in conclusion: to blame Rahul Gandhi or the Congress for the delays is not good enough. If we're serious about ensuring that the Indian Air Force is well armed, we need many more fighter jets. Just 36 won't cut it, and 5, you know, it's not even enough to get started. 36 is just the start. We need many more. Only then will we walk the talk and make the effort. But you have to give credit that 36 is better than none, and these weapons are expensive. We'll track what happens very, very closely. For the time being, Supriya Sharnate, Amit Malviya, Air Marshal Anil Chopra and Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur for joining us on the Newstrack. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.